Start record. And we are live. Good evening, Gringo. Can I call you Gringo?
Yes, of course.
Welcome to Blog
But
Watch.
my friends really call me Greg.
Ay, Greg ba?
Gringo is my...
That's what he said, Bruce.
I don't
Rebel
know.
name.
It's a nickname given to me during my cadet days. Nung uso yung spaghetti western, sa mga naalala mo, Brad?
Ayun. There's a sound. So welcome to Blog Watch. I'd just like to give you a little background about ourselves. We started as ordinary bloggers. I'm really a mom blogger, and Jane is also, she's a yoga blogger. So personal blogger, si Jello. And we're just ordinary, we're not even political bloggers. But then one day in 2009, we were invited by PCIJ for a training for the automated election, because they said that the bloggers will be a formidable force. And I also believed it, because I thought that the traditional media didn't really give us the coverage that we wanted as citizens. So why not take the medium?
Yes.
So in Blog Watch, we do not accept any cash or kind for such interviews. This is really a volunteer. So we have our day jobs. So this is really out of love of country. And our source of funding can come from my husband and from generous foundations for the hosting, like Vival Foundation. But very minimal. So what we want to focus here is platforms.
Okay.
Yes, and hopefully, can you tweet now? Not or later? Because I would have wanted you to write in 140 characters the focus of your platform.
I'll
tweet that.
I'll do better. I'll put it in one word.
Ah, okay.
Children.
Oh, children.
Yeah.
Okay, can you explain?
The next generation of Filipino citizens and leaders.
Yes.
Everything I have done from the time I spent 17 years as a soldier, 7 years as a rebel, and 15 years as a senator. I found the vocabulary after 65 years to zero in on what my life was all about. It's about my children and other Filipino children. Every law I have helped pass was really designed to make the next generation, children, smarter, healthier, happier, stronger, and safer. So that by the time their term comes, when we won't be around to guide them, they'll be competitive with the Germans and the Singaporeans and the Americans and the Chinese of their generation.
Specifically, what would be the bills or legislative agenda you pass for the children for this 16th Congress?
I'll be continuing what I tried to do for the last 15 years, which is, I'll run it off, no?
Yes, okay.
At least the legislative measures I have either sponsored, co-sponsored, authored, or helped pass. Some in the pipeline. Clean air, clean water, solid waste management, national security policy, fire code, amendments to the Dangerous Drugs Act, amendments to the local government code, freedom of information, land use policy, two extensions of the agrarian reform program, the centerpiece program of the mother of the president, industrialization, anti-driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
Is it passed already?
Yes. Gun control law. I'll try to recall, because
I have a list here in your wiki, Filipinas. Yeah, laws and
So,
advocacies. Yeah.
if I name any one of these laws, I'd put it under the headings I mentioned.
Children.
Keeping them stronger, make them stronger, smarter, healthier, happier, and safer, wherever they are. They're our most precious, strategic, and renewable resource. And this is something we can we can agree on.
Of course.
Yes, that's the point.
Should be,
Because
yeah.
we're so clear about what we're against, we forgot what we should be for. In my lifetime, I've seen 2 occasions where the Filipino people gathered, by the millions for something, not against something. EDSA 1, 1986, February 22, 25, and the visit of the Pope. EDSA 2 was divisive. I don't know if there is such a thing as EDSA 3.
What happened to the People's Ownership of Government Information
We
POGI
passed-
Act?
We call it the POGI Bill, People's
POGI Bill,
Ownership
yeah,
of
POGI
Government
Bill.
Information Bill. We passed it before Christmas in the Senate. The House apparently had issues to resolve. Malacanang could not certify it as urgent. For whatever reason, I'm not going to be presumptuous enough to comment.
That was my second question. I mean, is there...
Why?
Yeah, why? Because is there any way that the citizens can push the agenda in the 16th Congress?
They can, if you lobby hard enough
Yeah.
and relate it to
Yeah, that's...
the current 90-day campaign for the May 2013 elections that should resonate among the decision makers both in Congress and in Malacanang.
I heard that the freedom of information is not really picked up by the palace because it doesn't relate to the common tao, or it's harder to push because what is that for them? It will not feed them. Like that. So
One senior senator made I think, the more reasonable or practical comment.
that's
When your administration, you don't want a freedom of information bill because it gives the obstructionist ammunition to to block programs and platforms. If you're in the opposition, you want a freedom of information bill because it gives you
Yeah.
the wherewithal to delay certain measures that do not suit your partisan political taste.
So you will refile this bill in the
I'm
16th?
still banking on the 2 remaining days in June. Try to push it. Yes.
Really? You
Two
think it can
days.
still be done?
Yes. By the way, I forgot to mention land use.
Yeah, that was one of your legislative I saw.
But on the Freedom of Information Bill, it actually radically changes the bureaucratic landscape. It brings government back to the people. That's why People's Ownership of Government Information Bill. No? With certain exceptions, national security, foreign policy, executive privilege, private contracts, police operations, litigation. It doesn't tell our people or the requesting party that no, we won't give it to you. It just simply says we cannot give it to you at the moment because a decision has not yet been made and it might jeopardize our public or national interest. Transparency. It fits very well with the Ang Matuwid, but apparently this is not appreciated. If a requesting party brings an office or a public official who refuses to give information to court, the burden of proving the issue is brought on the shoulders of the denying party. It's the office or the public official who should prove why the information was not given. Originally, it was the other way around. You have to prove in court why you need the information. And if you use that information, so here we go again with the core principles, core constitutional principles. With every right or freedom comes a certain responsibility. If you use that information for criminal activities, then you will be faced with the revised penal code and the corresponding penalties.
You want to follow up with the freedom of information bill?
Well, because a lot of us think already that the chances of that ever being passed in any administration is going to be slim. Why? Because the people who are going to pass the law are the ones who will be affected by the law. So, what will it take, do you think, for that kind of law to ever pass? Because we already see that kung may paraan, kung gusto talaga may paraan. Kasi there have been bills that have been rushed, you know, and have been really pushed and certified as urgent. But when it comes to the FOI, when it comes to the political dynasty, anything that will affect the legislators themselves, mukhang hindi gumagalaw talaga eh. So,
well,
what-
Jane, I'm not insinuating that the class war is real. This is the bottom line. Anti-dynasty. During the time of President Ramos, it was certified as urgent. Now, why was it not passed? I think you know the answer. Why naman would legislators legislate against their own interests?
correct.
So, the reason now is there is no enabling law. Now, no enabling law. Now, the attitude is, let's allow the people to decide. But to me, that's a technical and legal problem. Diba? If we believe, after provoking a lengthy debate on the merits and disadvantages of allowing families to control our political life, then I guess we have to situate it precisely in our national order of priorities if it impacts on core principles of democracy. But on the other hand, if you look at our history, if the people do not want you anymore, they'll go to the streets to remove you. We've done that to 2 presidents.
But do you think that is still the way to go after having
That's a
done
bad
it
habit.
twice?
I agree, Jane. No? That's a
Diba?
bad habit that we have acquired, and we cannot be victims of our own collective impatience. I know because we were in, it's like 1986. No? So, I think the remedy is to strengthen the institutions, move towards educating our people beyond the 4 walls of the classroom, para they will have possession of the issues. But how can you do that naman and address the 50% who continue to wallow in poverty? When you discuss this issue, they'll probably say, saka natin pag-usapan yan, naglalaba ako nagbebenta ako ng barbecue, di ba? Mamaya na, kain muna tayo. So, it's a convergence of all these issues that will allow us to address more fundamental issues. Now, case in point, I don't know how you feel about the K-12. We supported that bill, K-12 program for Department of Education. But I have raised this with Secretary Brother Armin, that it's more basic than that. Why? Because unless you intervene between the ages of 0 to 6 through nutrition, even if we give our children, failing to intervene, 1 classroom and 1 teacher each and 1 supercomputer each, it will be a case of underdeveloped minds and underdeveloped bodies. And it's not going to work. So it's the nutrition program should be integrated in our educational system. By the way, the information we're getting is alarming. The World Health Organization extrapolated and determined that in the Philippines, 80 to 100 children between the ages of 0 to 6 die every day from malnutrition or malnutrition-related causes. We've called NEDA and top members of the cabinet to task for that. We haven't gotten an answer yet. The best effort was to come up with a 7 peso Nutri pack, the Pinoy packet, patterned after the Brazil program.
Yun ba yung nagkaroon din ng scam na nung tiningnan nila yung inanalyze nila yung hindi talaga siya
Hindi.
Nutri?
It's actually
It's really Nutri.
parang fiber, grains, but 7 pesos. Good for the nutritional requirements of 1 adult a day. But we've asked them during the last budget hearing, lack of funding round. So that's another thing that I might want to push if I manage to go back to the Senate.
So you are one of your stronger advocacies this time around will be some kind of nutrition program
Yes.
for
Well,
ages
in
0
effect,
to 6
Jane,
initially.
Angelo, I'm going to look for those 80 to 100 children Where are they? I mean, these children who are dying every
what
day.
regions
Yeah,
specifically?
I look at the demographics.
Okay.
Para the intervention will be more precise and more focused. But if you notice, based on what my responses so far, there are really fundamental problems that we are facing. Good evening. Basic problems, no, that need to be addressed. Now, one problem I have encountered for most, if not all issues, is right up your alley. We have failed to upgrade our data system, our
Which data?
information systems. Agrarian reform, when we tried to extend it, I asked for data, they gave me a balikbayan box full of data which I do not have the capability to sort out. Centerpiece program, more than one generation old. Centerpiece program of the late President Cory Aquino. And we don't have current, complete, and updated data. Any issue, national security, ganun din.
NEDA would not have.
They're trying to put it together, but NEDA has been underutilized. By the way, the head of NEDA is no less than the President of the Philippines.
Right now. Is that in a
That should be...
acting position? Acting?
No, no.
Somebody is
He's the head of NEDA. The NEDA secretary is only a director general, but he holds the rank of a cabinet rank. So if the president says, I want this program to move, it will move. Because the NEDA is the ultimate receptacle for all data related to national development, economic development especially.
You want to
Sorry,
answer?
my name is Juliet Sonido. Juliet Sonido.
Junet, yes, I'm recognized. Sorry.
Yeah, so, you might know my uncle. I think you know my uncle. Colonel Galvez.
Yes, si Rafi.
Rafi.
Oo.
Anyway, yung question ko, I just came in from Zambales. So, kasi part of I think one of the problems, you were talking also about yung strengthening things at the nutritional level. There's also growing problems in terms of the digital divide as well. I read a study commissioned by the UN, and they did a study on one study was a survey on schools that were connected online or that had internet connection, and it's not very encouraging as well. So in certain areas like in Mindanao, Visayas, non-cities, you have a high percentage of children who haven't have access to any of this internet. More or less, they don't also have access to a library, and that is a problem in terms of these are the future generations, and if our goals is shape minds and also the mindset of people. That's nutrition, and I think it goes hand in hand with basic nutrition also. When you become senator, would you be looking into at least partly on nutrition and also partly to something to bridge the divide? At present, the penetration rate is at 29.1% in the Philippines. So that means roughly 70% are not yet that connected.
Yeah, I'd probably educate myself first about it, and then if I believe that this can be incorporated in the core advocacies that I have, I'd probably help push for it, because under these conditions, we are a developing country. I guess we have to fall back on our two basic strengths, no? Our human resources, especially young, and our almost unlimited access to information. If you combine these two and adopt the slogan of the present administration, convergence and PPP, private-public partnership, maybe we can get something going. But to me, the problem also is apparently we have been victimized by our own bureaucracy, in the sense that there is no continuity. New president, new policy. New governor, new policy. No? Of course, I can start with President Marcos. No? Isang bansa, isang diwa, sa ikaunlad ng bayan, disiplina ang kailangan, new society, green revolution. And then President Cory came in, democratic space. Then, after Cory came President Ramos, Philippines 2000. And then, after President Ramos came President Erap, para sa mahirap. Then, after Erap came GMA, Strong Republic. Now we have Daang Matuwid. Basically, these are medium-term development programs. No? Because if you superimpose it over the single term allowed for our presidents, then if we accept the thesis that 6 years is too long for a bad president and too short for a good president, then we move into the direction of charter change. Now, how did charter change develop a negative connotation? It happened, I think, during the time of President Ramos, when towards the end of his term, somebody asked, oh, so this is a medium-term program, Philippines 2000, no? I suppose we have a long-term program. And somebody piped in, yes, but President Ramos has to continue as president. Ever since, whenever people talked about charter change, oh, it's only designed to extend your term. That's how, I'm just saying that I think the initial responses to most, or not many of our problems, no, is not economic but political. Now, another case I would like to mention, and I just want to be very clear about this, is, can you imagine, Junette, that up to this point, we have not decided where and when to bury the body of the late President Marcos? Can you imagine the amount of political baggage you carry? And I've asked young legislators, young mayors, no? Young leaders, in fact. And I said, so we have this problem. What's the solution? They quoted a Latin phrase. They said, tabula rasa, clean slate. The issues that are already in the courts with evidence ongoing, let it be. Para justice will be served. No? But those issues that are consequences of partisan politics, it's about time we bury this culture of anger, hatred, and vindictiveness, which apparently happened, to my memory, after 86. Up to now, we're still bashing a dead person. Okay. I am not ready to accept the proposal that all the problems you are facing now were invented by the past administrations. This is the cumulative effect of lack of vision, lack of political unity, lack of a comprehensive long-term national peace policy, not to end only the armed conflict, but to, somebody commented that we are a nation at war with ourselves. Now, we have a Sabah situation. This is a situation or a problem that might generate the much needed unity that we need to confront a common enemy. So I'm just putting this on the table as observations, not original on my part, but derived from people I have talked with.
So do you think, kasi part of it is also with consistency of a long range or long-term plan. So do you think there is such a need to at least strengthen the bureaucracy to such a point that it is tantamount to the legislative that they can actually follow a certain long-range plan?
Yes. In fact, that's why I took issue with the Freedom of Information Bill. It will strengthen, it will radically change the bureaucratic landscape. Somebody steps up to you, you're a public official in a public office, and it's your duty to give the person who owns government and the information you have, give that information to him, with certain exceptions. So I agree with.
In terms of politics, this would call for at least a separate head of state and separate head of government.
Charter change.
Charter
We have to
change.
decide what form we want. To me personally, after being a senator for 15 years, I think we can really re-engineer our bureaucracy, starting with Congress. Why a bicameral Congress? Diba? Why a Senate? And it's not. It does not reflect cost effectiveness in a developing country.
And you think we can do this through the legislative process?
Not only a legislative process, but a coordination among the three branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary.
Okay. At this point, we don't need someone like the late Hugo Chavez coming in and
Maybe more somebody more like Lee Kuan Yew.
Lee Kuan Yew.
Yes, who is, by the way, an advisor to the People's Republic of China. A success story trying to help a big country. But more than that, it's also a question of national priorities. It's also a question of maybe more love of country. Our demographics kasi we seem to be more loyal to our family and to our clan and to our province and to our region, when it should be the other way around. That cuts across even the political landscape, no? Because I think in other more developed countries, the contribution is not from national government, no? It's not top to bottom, it's bottom up, no? Even from the revenues of, let's say, provinces, they help support national government, which is in charge only for centralized planning, but execution is done at local government level.
It's nation building.
Yeah, where the minimum requirement is sacrifice.
Yeah.
But well, these are all motherhood, no? But what do I know? Former soldier, former rebel, no? But I'm just I try to educate myself and settle down on certain core components. Yeah.
Pwede follow up. One of our BlogWatch colleagues is not here, but she's asking a question online.
Yes.
She's asking, if you were the president right now, how would you handle the Sabah situation? And then I will follow that up with my own question, because I just wanted to clarify. You said earlier that this might be a time for all of us to be united against a common enemy. Who were you referring to as the enemy?
Jen, I avoid terms like enemy because it conjures images.
So you did not mean
anyway,
enemy.
let's go back to your question. As a constitutional principle, the right to life is paramount. When one life is invoked, no, freedom of speech, expression, and press take a backseat. We are talking here of 800,000 Filipinos in Sabah and 20 million Filipinos in Mindanao. So initial step, I will look for the 800,000 Filipinos. Where are they? How are they? A denial from the Malaysian government will not suffice. Second, these two issues have already developed. No? Before, it was only the issue of our legitimate life claim to Sabah by the Sultanate of Sulu. Now that's a separate issue already. No? The issue now is alleged torture, human rights violations, and summary executions, which might impact on the ongoing peace process and on our relationship with a neighbor in our backdoor, Malaysia. It will impact on our foreign policy and our security policy. And to top it all, China and the global community are watching. What would I do? First, avoid sending conflicting signals like, let's all go home. This is not the way to do it. We'll emphasize the Sabah claim. But when you get home, we will prepare charges against you. You were members of the Royal Army of the Sultan of Sulu. you're caught between a rock and a hard place. And don't send, I'm not referring to anybody, don't send armchair negotiator from Manila to deal with somebody who is not even authenticated as an authorized spokesman of the Sultan. But at all cost, avoid an escalation of the armed conflict that has now developed into a protracted guerrilla war. Now we take it from there and everything else is procedural. But as in the case of the Scarborough Shoals issue, the Western Philippine Sea with China, let's not allow this to remain as a bilateral issue, no, because there are other countries involved. I speak from a little experience because 30 years ago, 30 or 40 years ago, we had a bungled Jabida project. And as a soldier, I had to fight together with a lot of rebels and soldiers for 20 years.
You were there when it happened, the job.
No, after. As a
right
consequence
after.
of the
I see.
failed Jabida project, no, I think the estimate is about 300,000 lives were lost. Rebels, soldiers, and more importantly, worse, innocent civilians. In fact, I was wounded several times there.
It was during the MNLF conflict.
MNLF conflict, yes, early 70s.
Yung ano po, kasi basically your forte in the military has been security also.
Yes.
What's your view on our national cybersecurity? And with it, the cybercrime law that has been passed, do you think it's enough? Well, first of all, what do you think about the cybercrime law? Because there's been a lot of opinions about it.
Yes.
Yes, and what your opinion about it is, first, and second off, in our cybersecurity also in terms of the country. Kasi if you notice right now, if there's any skirmishes between countries, sometimes what follows, or not really sometimes, but oftentimes what follows afterwards is waves of hacking, waves of getting information and security across country. The latest is with China and the US.
Well, Junat, I signed the committee report. And of course, the President signed that into law. But I am happy that when almost 20 petitions were brought before the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land decided to hold its implementation for 120 days. Now it's indefinite. No? I'm happy that has happened because that's the way democracy works. When public interest is jeopardized and this is brought before the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court rules. And I understand that a series of amendments are being prepared no? to make the law more responsive. But having said that, even more technologically advanced countries admit difficulty in regulating cyber terrain. If Wall Street Journal and security sites of the US, the most powerful country in this planet, can be hacked, then I guess we are as vulnerable. So the only way is probably to induce more responsibility and help, protect our secure sites. I don't know technically how that can be done, but I guess we will have to run it through the mill again, so that there'll be more inputs based on painful experience, and we can come up with a more responsive law. But I understand that initially the reaction was against the libel provision, which sends a chilling effect on the freedom of the press, freedom of expression, and freedom of speech, which is a legitimate concern. That's also the reason on a parallel issue why when by the way, we just happen to be the current chair of the Senate Committee on Public Information and Media. When we were trying to, I provided the counterpart measure to Congressman Palmones decriminalizing libel for journalists. I expanded it to decriminalizing libel, period, for everybody. Part of the agenda was to deal with the right of reply, which, according to the resource persons we invited during that hearing, must be dealt with as a separate issue because there are corporate, legal, and constitutional implications. So we decided to separate it. What we did was deal with the decriminalizing libel act.
In terms of
But I forgot you net. Before I forget, we invited some people from media, and politicians, especially elected officials, are naturally afraid of the big ones, no media. We asked them that the only regulatory intervention of Congress, of government, when you talk of media, is through the granting of franchises, permits to operate. Aside from that, we will have to toss the ball back at media. I'm talking about institutional media, and ask them to organize para they can impose professional standards and ethics on their members. To do that, everyone must be a member, which is not the case. Not, like to say, KBP, not all are members. So they're not covered by any sanction or any imposition of certain standards.
So just like to interject before we go away with cybercrime, would you support the repeal of the cybercrime law?
And the replacement.
Yeah, and the replace. And would you support the legislation of the Magna Carta for Philippine Internet freedom?
Yes, but I cannot allow my mouth to move faster than my brain.
Sure.
I have to study this, and I'm a little slow on this, so I have to really understand why the highest court ruled. Okay, I cannot rise higher than the legal fountain from where we all drink.
But can we at least send you a copy of the Magna Carta?
Yes, of course, Jay.
Because actually it's an
From authored by Senator Santiago.
It was it was filed by Senator Santiago, but if we go back to the roots of it, that was actually the first crowdsourced draft bill. And the people who crowdsourced it actually came from the IT, the legal profession, the bloggers, and these were all worked on as a group. And basically, the reason why we are strongly supporting the Magna Carta is because it does address cybercrime. In fact, it is more complete than the current cybercrime law, but it removes the controversial issues. So
Jane, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got this from my children, who are more competent, and they tell me, Papa, the social networking brings out the best and the worst in us. Okay, from my children ito, and okay. So as long as I am able to confront this issue, I would support instinctively something like that. I don't know if you were all witness to the impeachment proceedings, where I raised the issue of the trial inside the courtroom and the trial by publicity going outside, ongoing. Where even before the trial inside the official court was consummated, was finished, they had already reached a verdict. Now, I feel very strongly about this because I raised the issue of not only legal and constitutional rights, but right to life. What about right to honor? When you are accused, tried, and convicted by publicity, what about your children? And I have been a victim of that when I was underground for 7 years. No?
There was no social media.
Well, there was, but and I can, my threshold for pain is a little high after 65 years, but not my children, not other Filipino children. Like when they go to school, after their lolo or their father appearing in the 6 news, being accused of being a crook, why naman destroy their future? Wala naman silang kinalaman sa isyong ito. Yun lang, Jane, that's the only issue I have. Na fair is fair.
Yes.
Social networking or no social networking. Magna Carta or no Magna Carta. I want to protect, as I said earlier, the children. Make them happier naman. And don't deprive them of their future just because their dad or their lolo was accused of something that has not been proven, through due process and the rule of law. If we can settle that issue, I guess.
Yeah, siguro if we can actually put
Yes.
it, or if you go through the reading of the Magna Carta and discover there is something there,
Yes.
that would be
But
actually brought out.
no, but
also.
again, Junette, I will not be that
Yeah.
presumptuous. That's you're the ones, you're the experts.
Yeah. Siguro, sir, maybe in the future, kung you can actually tap yung resources people who work for the Magna Carta and also other people online, or other people who know about in social media.
Yeah.
Not only one side but all sides. Let's put them
Okay.
together.
Now, Jane, I'll jump into, I think, what some of our bloggers might have wanted to ask about my life as a rebel.
Yes.
Oh yeah, there's some
Can
questions
I?
coming in.
Yeah, there
Yes.
are.
Like-
Can I just read them out and then so that you can?
Okay.
Okay, go on.
Specifically on the life as a rebel, because they're also listening online. So
Yes.
to give them credit, Ray Trilliana asks, does he think the coups he mounted against Cory then were mistakes, or he stands by those acts? Number 2, Combachero asks, is the coup from within more effective?
Ako eh.
Yes. Another one asks, Sesos says, it is widely said the coup d'etat derailed the Philippine economy already on the upswing under Cory. 20 years later, does he regret?
Okay. Mine naman, I don't know if it's related to your being a red. Terry Don asked, did you order the killing of Olalia?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, to the
That's a
question
question.
from Noemi, no. No. But let's go back to the coup attempts. Of course, they called it coups, but we call them military uprisings. But we don't want to deal with semantics. No? Okay, the only regret I have is I did not have other tools at my disposal. If I were a lawyer, I'd probably be a human rights lawyer. If I were a businessman, during the time, I'd probably organize the socially responsible businessmen. But I was a soldier. My training was management of violence. So my only regret was the loss of lives, consistent with a constitutional principle I learned now. Okay, let me go straight to the numbers. In 1987, 150 lives were lost. Okay? In 1989, 300. But I will have to ask this also, para we can put it in perspective. Has anybody been held accountable for the 8,000 Filipinos who died in 2 hours after some government official allowed the denudation of the forest in Ormo? Okay.
What year?
That is
Yeah,
about
law.
during the
That was
80s. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
That happened in the same decade, no? Have we quantified the loss of lives resulting from those who lost their jobs because during the same decade we did not have an energy development policy where factories had to shut down because of lack of energy? Third issue, I remember during the same period some farmers wanted to see their president. And what was done to them? We shot them. And that is called the Menjola Massacre. I'm asking for closure to these issues so that we can we can really give life to the principle of consistent application of justice. But, well, I'm not using this as an excuse, no? But we were granted amnesty. As I said, this is not the excuse under the administration of President Ramos.
Yeah.
But even if the death penalty was still existent, I am willing to face the consequences. But I want the people responsible for the Ormoc, the 8,000 lives, no, and the Menjola massacre, and the unquantified and unqualified families who lost their jobs, and probably some of their children died, to also face what is coming. Now, why did the uprisings happen? The very same reason that 1986 happened. The original plan was to mount a military operation against Malacanang. Now, why am I raising this issue? Because of my perception that double or multiple standards are being applied. So if it benefits the new holders of power, it is okay. If it does not, it's wrong. Now, we have to clarify that also. Now, last issue is, I don't lay any claim to primacy in terms of who were the real heroes in 1986. No? The heroes were the people, the Filipino people. But in a previous lifetime, I have the scars, physical scars, emotional, no, to show for how I fought as a soldier to preserve our democracy. And many of my brothers in arms died, and top it off with the civilians who died. That's why I've traversed the entire spectrum. From a soldier, I am now in a position to make laws that are responsive. But if this is going to be taken against me, then it's okay. I will face the consequences, even in terms of public opinion. But I want the questions I raised answered also. In fact, if, push the envelope further, no? If I'm going to be in front of a firing squad, I want the people responsible to be beside me. For Mukhlad, Menjola massacre, those who lost their jobs and who lost their children.
I want to understand about the coup because it was at the height where President Cory was very popular. So anything that would go against her was really
yes, I understand.
really bad. But what was really was it because of a weak leadership or there was something that
No,
we found?
In 1986,
87, I was...
No, 86.
Also,
Started 86.
Yeah, okay.
The Reform the Armed Forces movement decided that we were going to choose the time and the place to die. Because the plan was to assault Malacanang. No?
Yeah.
I was going to lead 30 men against 2,000 people guarding the palace. And Red Kapunan was going to lead 200 people against about 5,000 men. No? So, our point was, even if we died in the process, we would have shown our people and the world that there were still some decent elements in the military. Okay? Now, but the problem is we survived because people power happened. So 87 and 89, the uprisings were just a continuation of we don't fault President Cory for that. Now, in response to that question about our economy was going up, we asked Professor Winnie Monsod. When I was underground, we arranged a meeting with her, through the late Congressman Bonnie Iliego. We asked her point blank, "Ma'am, were we responsible for the collapse of the Philippine economy?" You know what her answer was? She said, "No, you are not that good. It was already on its way down. We just accelerated the process." No, it was not. We're not looking for a reason. In fact, we're not looking for a government to overthrow. We're just asking for reforms and good government because when people claim they know about the military, my response usually is, until you have seen violence at its worst, not only the violence of the armed conflict, until you get shot, fatally, you don't live to talk about it, no? But in my case, I survived, no? I bullet wounds and bullet scars in my body. But I've seen civilians die in the conflict. I saw that firsthand. It's usually soldiers who want an end to the violence because they're out there in the front lines. Witness to deeper forms of violence like hunger, like social injustice, like abuses from all sides of the ideological or even the revolutionary spectrum.
There was no other way to overthrow the government other than the means that you did in 1980.
We appealed to our leaders.
You did.
Yes,
You
we-
tried another.
Yes, we.
Would you do this? But had you succeeded, would you have set up a military
No.
junta?
No.
What would you have done?
What we were recommending, and during those days it was former Minister Enrile and Jan Ramos who became president, we were suggesting a National Unification Council that would be composed of former President Cory, Cardinal Sin, some credible representatives from sectors in our society as a transition mechanism to bring us slowly back to democracy instead of throwing wide open the floodgates, and elections immediately, which would have induced a political culture shock like what we experienced. Because this is just my observation, and I can discuss this naman with those who care to discuss this soberly with me. Every time we install a leader or our leaders through people power in the streets, which Genio said is becoming a bad habit, no? Or through elections, after installing them, we go home. After probably drinking a little and celebrating, no? We impose the burden of governance on the people we install, which is contradictory to the speeches we make about re-engineering the system that bred this corruption and this penchant for too much partisan politics, no? When in fact, the easy part was installing them, elections or people power. The more difficult part is after we install them. And now there is a call for more involvement in our
That was
political and national
I
life.
felt that was the mistake I did in 1986, that I just left
Yeah,
the
yeah,
government. That's why
yes.
we
That's
now
why-
in Blogwatch we
No.
espouse that it's the people
Yes.
by the people.
No.
So our work is, we thought that our work will be over by the
Yes,
time
that-
but we
That
found
was
out-
indeed a mistake, Noemi.
Yeah, but
Yes.
now we realize that for us you have to be
You
vigilant.
also
and that
have
is-
to be there. You have
Yes,
to be there.
you have to be there, one way or the other. That's why I make a lot of issue about the freedom of information. It will allow us to be there,
Yes.
the FOI bill.
That's right. Do-
And if I may add, it will allow us to, deal with this in a more sober manner instead of I'm still getting some backlash about the coup attempts, no?
Yeah.
Based on limited information. Nobody bothered to ask us, oh, why naman did you do it? We had families also, di ba? I mean, they're vulnerable. Kami were soldiers, no? Our job description is you must be prepared to give your life and do what is necessary.
Didn't that give you votes? Like
That's
not-
moving too fast forward. No,
I thought it
probably
gave
that's
you
one
votes.
practical reason why people brought me to the Senate as the first independent senator in Philippine
Yeah,
political
that's why.
history.
But was there a reason for that?
Yeah, they
because of
probably
your
said-
background?
Okay, this
You think they saw
unasan
your
guy keeps
idealism?
on unsuccessfully trying
Yeah,
to
I mean,
let's
let's
put
see.
him in the Senate where we can see him, where he can make
Yeah.
help make better laws, no? And that's what I did.
Do you think your past rebel acts at that time was the source of inspiration also for the
No.
future, like the Oakwood
Well,
and all the other
Jen-
movements that are trying to do it outside the
Okay.
sort of the democratic way?
If I had known then what I know now, I would probably try to stand on higher moral and political ground by advocating peaceful, legal, and constitutional means. But I cannot bring back naman time, no? So now I would discourage anybody because there is so much democratic space now.
Yeah.
Diba? You can say anything. And I have the benefit naman of experience, and I'm still alive to talk about it, no?
So what would you
But-
tell, let's say, the soldiers now, if you, because I'm sure you still have connections to the AFP,
Yes,
to,
I
to
would
the
tell them-
military. What would you tell them now if you hear the disgruntled?
I'd probably go straight to them and ask, why? Why would you want to do it? Diba? Because what is the antidote to military adventurism, coup d'etats, insurgency, secessionism, the antidote, to these ideas is a better idea, which is good government and reform. Diba? I mean, if I tell you now that the only solution here is violence, a revolution, a bloody revolution, and none of you believe me because from where you sit, the people seem to be getting the better part of democracy, then we have no problem. But if one of you believes me, even secretly, then we have already two problems, that person and me. Okay. So I believe that what will keep you, everybody, and even government on high ground is legal, constitutional, and peaceful means. But I cannot answer for the future. Somewhere down the road, and this has been validated by, as you mentioned, the Oakwood incident, somebody will decide in his heart and mind that the root causes of social injustice, poverty, hunger, homelessness, and 80 to 100 Filipino children dying every day have not been addressed. And he or she will probably decide there is no other way.
Are you saying, sir, then that the evil you fought before are still present today? You're just using a different means to battle them?
Yes. Sabi nga nila, older and wiser. No? That's why I became a politician, a rebel, and a soldier, so that my children would not become rebels, politicians, and soldiers. And that's the same prayer and hope for other Filipino children. I mean, we have to, by the way, nobody said it would be easy. If this is a case of national impatience, especially with each other, nobody said, I never heard anybody say it's going to be a walk in the park.
Your faith in terms of the national politics and national has been more or less intertwined with Senator Enrile from the beginning up to the present. Has there been any point, let's say, pre-86 and during the Senate that you actually differed in terms of views or in terms of policy that you would pursue? Let's say pre-86 and post-86, and also during your term in the Senate, have you disagreed in terms of philosophy or also in terms of policy that should be pursued?
Before you answer that, sir, may follow-up. Kadikit din doon para isang gulusok na lang. His perspective is you're intertwined with Senator Enrile. Mine is Troika kayo, General Ramos, Enrile, and yourself. So, in relation to that, what happened now, it seems you are more close with Senator Enrile, and the former president has his own direction.
Well, first of all, let's talk with Senator Enrile. No? I'm independent. He belongs to a party. We've taken on many occasions opposing views, but of course that is not highlighted because of the gatekeepers, established media. That is the subject of some news items, that you get one, you actually have two. I'm Robin to his Batman, the perpetual security officer and sidekick. I don't really mind this because the reason why I have known him for half of my life is because of the mutual respect and independence that we have given to each other. I've never been in a position to whisper in his ear something that did not warrant an input from me. Of course, he was arrested and incarcerated. I went underground for 7 years. I became a senator, congressman. On the land use policy, he's actually preparing an opposing view reflected in some amendments. I am the principal shepherd of that bill. So it's a misimpression that wherever he is, I will be. But having said that, I can still consider him my mentor and my surrogate father. Now, if that is wrong, then I am guilty. I have learned so much from it. He's not perfect, no? As I am not. No, but the reason why we lasted this long because of this space between us that does not intrude exclusively on the core values that we hold dear. If those values coincide, I guess that is not our fault. Now, in the case of President Ramos, they were both principal figures in 1986. I still hold President Ramos in high esteem. I occasionally bump into him. But it's not what it seems. That's why it lasted this long. Of course, I belong to the swing vote, the swing bloc in the Senate now. I cannot imagine myself being anywhere else. On the RH bill, on the sin tax, we've taken the same position. But that's not a reflection of my dog loyalty to him. He has allowed me some leeway for judgment calls that may oppose his stand on certain issues, and he has not taken that against me. In the same manner, I have not taken these opposing views against him.
Siguro just out of curiosity, no? Para may konting
Yes.
levity. Is yung snake nyo still alive?
Yes, but I donated it to issue already. But this impression that I used to jump from perfectly good airplanes with a snake around my neck is media. If I put it around my neck and I'm free falling at 120 miles per hour, the snake would fall. The snake, when the snake was younger, was in my pocket, sleeping while I was jumping. But you know how it is.
How
But
big was that snake?
when I donated it to a friend's zoo, it was 30 feet.
Wow. Is it a python?
A python. It's not poisonous.
Yes.
You feed it every 21 days. No functional utility whatsoever. It does not bark. It does not bite. It just sleeps. It changes its skin every 21
But it
days.
intimidates.
Yeah, but it's the stuff of which, misplaced legends are made. It's part of the, I don't know.
So what else aside from that is legend as far as you are concerned? Or what have you heard about yourself that is not true?
But it's not true. That I'm a serial coup plotter whose career as a rebel is untarnished by victory, except in 1986. I am a very strong advocate of non-violence because I know I have done many things in the name of duty. I've seen deeper form of violence which I hope will not be inflicted on the majority of our people. I believe in God, country, and family as core values.
Sige. We have to let them ask questions also. Dean,
Dean,
Rosh,
yeah.
and Sonny.
Si Rosh muna, Rosh.
Okay,
I have
Rosh.
one simple question.
Yes, sir.
Why should we vote for you?
Because I have done my part with the mandate that was given to me for the last 15 years as a senator. I cannot separate this, as I said earlier, from my career as a rebel for 7 years and a soldier for 17 years. And these experiences have helped me make, I think, better laws. I am way past making promises. All I need to do now is to continue the work I've started. Well, the last, I don't want to do this as a manner of self-promotion, but I did not only talk. I put my life on the line and the lives of those I hold dear over and over and over again. So I'm way beyond rhetoric also. And I'm willing to do the same if it serves to my mind and in my heart public interest. Not for anybody else, but for the next generation of Filipinos. And I will stand on the record, on this record, Ross, and come May, I will accept the verdict of the Filipino people. No ifs and buts. Like a good soldier, when they say, Senator Unasan, the country cannot ask more from you, I will salute and go home to 5 children, 4 in-laws, 3 grandchildren, and 1 coming in July.
In relation to my question, but this one was asked by a colleague also in Vlogwatch. Since you said that you just wanted to continue what you have done, so what one law have you championed and passed that you are proudest?
The
of,
land
and
use.
why?
Well, I consider it passed technically because it's the first 30-year plan in Philippine legislative history. It will allow us to move into industrialization, determine what finite land and water resources we want for residential, industrial, agricultural, commercial, government centers, educational centers. It's going to be under the office of the president. It will outlive 5 Philippine presidents. It will be taught in schools. So our next generation of citizens and leaders will have equity in this. Now, if I can make here it, the FOI bill, which is also technically passed in the Senate. And I am confident that whatever happens, we will get this off the ground. But if you're looking at my other sources of pride in terms of legislative record, I'm shepherding the Agrarian Reform Law, which not only deals with redistributing land to the poorest among the poor, our agricultural and farmer sector, but moving into industrialization. Of course, my own area of competence is national security, and since the policy environment has been so porous, I'm hoping that this can be coordinated with other efforts, including foreign policy and economic policy. From where I sit kasi, Rosh, I think what really discourages long-term foreign investors is our lack of predictability. We're full of unpleasant surprises. No? New president, new policy. So we're trying to induce some sense of predictability, not the so-called hot money, but they come in, make their fast buck, and then pull out funds. Which reminds me that in the recent World Bank ratings, we have dropped from 136th out of 185 countries to 138 from 2011 to 2012. Why? High cost of electricity, highest in Asia. The cost of doing business like registration, taxes, enforcing contracts, permits. The bureaucracy is making it difficult for foreign or local investors. So I intend to put this all together, continue shepherding this with the natural oversight function of the Senate. By the way, even if, let's say, I refer to this bill as something I have authored, not even the Senate President can guarantee the passage of the bill. It's a collegial and consensual body. I remember the late Senator Raul Roco, who was my seatmate. I was between him and Senator Jun Magsaysay, saying, Greg, sabi niya, we were elected not as soldiers or lawyers, no? Or as people from different professions, but we're here to vote on life and death issues. So just be sure that when you vote, you are equipped with your best lights, because whatever the outcome is, people will suffer, people might lose their lives, people might live, children might be healthier, or might be deprived or basic nutrition if we make a wrong call that is reflected in the vote.
You mentioned a while ago that you are a rebel soldier, and now you would advise the soldiers not to do that. In case, let's say I write about you, can I say rebel soldier, bad boys, now totally good boys?
Well, I have no control over your the way you would put it across, but I think I have learned so much from my experience.
So you won't, let's say in future, won't ever think about starting another?
Yes, that's categorically putting it. No? I can speak only for myself.
Yes,
No?
what is?
Yes. I would advise other potential rebels to think 100 times before even considering other options. As I said earlier, there is so much democratic space. There are so many other legal, peaceful options. And I guess this is a country that is so beautiful, and we are such a good people that many of us have shown the capacity to risk everything. No? But when people look at heroism in various forms, I think none of us, individually or collectively, could be more heroic than mothers who have to feed their children and work at the same time. No, traffic enforcers who direct traffic and help manage traffic, rain or shine, the unsung soldiers who risk their lives, and policemen, overseas Filipino workers, about 15 million of them, risking the uncertainty in other countries to support their families at home. This would be more viable endeavors.
Yes, right now you're there on top.
Opo.
And the people you're talking about are the grassroots, the
Yes.
ordinary people. How would you be able to move from your top position there for these things to happen? Because you're not there in between. Like we're ordinary people. We encounter traffic every day, and there are those poor mothers who are unable to feed their children. So how would you
by making more responsive laws, like, as I said, Freedom of Information Bill and the Non-Use Bill, which would help actually in the long term solve these day-to-day problems that are related to, let's say, management of traffic, more basic issues like food, homes.
It has never happened. So many years. I was working 22 years, 6 years ago, and it was still every day the same.
Yes.
And I still see people, instead of them improving, still very poor.
That's true, ma'am.
It's like many of us will question whether or
Yes.
parang we're not
Well,
the dogs.
I've talked to a lot of people from other sectors, and they all have an interesting comment. Sabi nila, if you look at our recent history, it seems that we Filipinos never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. But the other side naman is, I've talked to the same cross-section, and they tell me, Senator, this country is so blessed that all we have to do is wake up every morning and continue breathing, and our economy is growing from 4 to 6%. Now, can you imagine what will happen if we get our act together, reduce the partisan political noise, and go to issues like productivity? Opo, it doesn't happen. That's why the first comment was more appropriate. No, we always miss an opportunity. But I guess I cannot. I think you and I cannot give up on this country. This is the only country we know. We all have families, we have children, we have younger brothers and sisters, and I'm just hoping that we can lift them up. I guess what this tells me is that we are all trying our best. By the way, in ancient times, that's at least what I have read, heroism was not defined in iconic terms. Heroes, by ancient definition, were any man or woman, young or old, who helped build for the next generation, were heroes. And I think we are a nation of heroes. That has been proven time and again.
There's a question here online.
Wait,
Yeah.
it's about wala ka pa. Kasi I will get
Meron na.
the questions in the last
Meron na.
part. Okay ka na?
Okay na.
Oh.
Intertwined naman yung question, sir. I've asked one senatorial Bolden, and we're talking about the oligarch political system. Sabi ko, you have a very noble objective or advocacy, and that is equal distribution of wealth.
Oh.
And my question to him, that will also be my question to you, is how would you do that? Ang sagot niya, is the easiest way is revolution. But since he is on the mainstream, unlike yung kanyang kasamahan na nasa mundo, diba, so sabi niya, this is one of the avenues to do that. Now, in relation to that, my question then is, if given an opportunity to lead again, because that's the easiest way to bring down the oligarchs, would you support that? If not, then do you still espouse the long and boring way of reforming our political and economic system? Now, my second question is, you mentioned kanina that your body for the bullets defending democracy. Part po ba yan sa seryong nawala ninyo?
Yes. Yes. No, but going back to your question, when you talk of revolution kasi, the images are usually violent, no? But I think revolution connotes change. Rapid change, if possible. But that's going to be a consequence of the decisions that we will have to make as a people. It has to be a product of a national consensus. In which case, we have to look at the fringes and thresholds of democracy. No? There are times when an enlightened leadership that is characterized by the highest level of statesmanship can cut through the democratic bureaucracy that we have created and make these decisions faster, no? And facilitate the implementation of these decisions that will reflect the highest public interest. So, we're talking of many variables, you know. Kung i-matrix natin, there's going to be a timeline, no? And of course, a threshold line for what will be required to implement these changes. So, I don't think we should be stuck with the paradigm that when we say revolution, it connotes a violent upheaval. That's, I think, a thing of the past because precisely of information technology. We can get to more people faster during this millennium. And I think that should be harnessed for the good of our people. So I think the entire political, economic, social, and even ideological landscape has changed. But the problem kasi is, through the form, we equate noise with productivity and work. The noisier you are, you believe that people will get the impression that you're working hard. No. You can work quietly, just like what you're doing. But you are reaching out to hearts and minds of our people. So I just want to beg to disagree that when you say revolution, it connotes a violent, armed upheaval. That's the traditional methodology. I believe that we have other options now.
But it could be part of the armed component, could be part of that, like the Arab Springs.
The armed component was generated by information technology. But the armed component was only used for psychological purposes to generate enough leverage so that it would be there would be parity on both sides, no, politically and in terms of military capability. That was the source of leverage because you cannot use words only, no. It must be backed up by some degree of force or the threat of force. And fortunately, I think for the world, it has moved in more peaceful directions, despite the occasional lapses of violence.
I have one question. Because we interviewed Jack and Gile a few months ago. You have been Jack and Gile what do you call this? Says that you were with him during the Alfie Anido incident, but there is what do you call this? Conflict between
his version and his dad's version.
Yeah. Who do you concur with?
Both, because my job description then, Jello, was security officer.
Yes.
I was not a police investigator.
Yes.
My duty was to secure the Minister Enrile then, and the members of his family. But I am confident of one thing, that the son had nothing to do with the death of the reported boyfriend of his sister. I know because I can account for the time I was there. But I didn't enter the room to look at evidence that's not supposed to be touched. Now, whatever perceived conflicts there are about the version of Senate President Enrile and Jackie is outside my prerogative and my capability to resolve. As far as I'm concerned, I protected them. Obviously, they're both still alive, and all members of their family. So I did my job. It was not my job to look at the evidence and find out who did it. But one thing I'm sure, if you're looking at the time frames, I can account for all members of their family. And none of them were nowhere near the so-called scene of the crime.
But who were you with before that happened?
Jackie and the minister. In fact, I was ordered during that night to accompany him. And I did my job and up to a certain point, until the police investigators are supposed to come. Whatever these conflicts are, that's beyond my capability to resolve.
Okay. We'll take questions from Twitter. Okay, one question here is, what can you do, Mr. Venasan, about our education system that led to the death of Crystal Tejada, the UP student in Manila? She died of suicide.
My impression, based on the limited information that I have, is that this is not a plain and simple tuition fee issue. There are other variables to be considered, like the capability of the family, the psychological makeup of the student, and I don't have enough to make a judgment. But I would push for a rationalization of the tuition system, so that make this affordable, so that one less source of stress, especially for poor students who have to rely on the state university to get a good education. And I'm saying this as a lawmaker. I'm not saying this as a social scientist or a psychologist or as a police investigator. I'm just making this initial judgment, based on what I read, what I know.
On the tuition.
On the tuition issue.
Yeah. Not
Reduce one variable, no? Make the tuition fees more affordable. Because, a lot of poor families send their children to the state university precisely because of the affordability of tuition fees. Now, if this is the factor that led to this unfortunate incident, I think we have to put this all together para we can decide what policy direction to embark on. But in my case, instinctively, I'd zero in on the tuition issue.
Okay, the next question is, did you have a nutrition platform before? If you did, what were the concrete actions to advance it?
Well, we have called the attention of NEDA, the Department of Science and Technology, and I have done this for the last 5 years. And I think they have reacted. And every budget deliberation, we ask the same questions.
Was this a bill that you did for
No,
nutrition?
it's an initiative just to motivate or encourage the appropriate departments to coordinate so that they can come up with a... By the way, we have some basis. We tried to look at the Brazilian model. In 2003, the former president, President Lula da Silva, decided that every Brazilian will eat 3 times a day. Now it's a woman, President Dilma Rousseff. You know what the problem in Brazil is now? Obesity. So from 3 times a day to obesity. Brazil is the fastest country in responding to poverty. They have also adopted this 100-kilometer principle, where one village produces food, 30% of which are applied to schools within a 100-kilometer radius. So you solve the production problem, the marketing problem, the nutrition and education problem. I think it is based on what I know at the moment. I think we have reached the threshold of globalization. The most I think telling comment is that in a speech delivered before I think an audience, UN audience, I'm not sure anymore, is that developing countries don't produce what they eat and they don't eat what they produce. This is a sad commentary on globalization. I think it has worked to the disadvantage of developing countries precisely. That's why I think the movement is now back to the villages. And I think we are equipped to do that. Our demographics indicate this. All we need at the moment, going back to an earlier question, is some political will, some sense of national priorities, some coordination, maybe more patriotism, more focus on our most important, precious and strategic resource, renewable resource, which is our children.
Another question here is, how do you assess the performance of men in uniform turned legislators?
They seem to be holding their own, but I would like to see more of them contribute in whatever capacity to nation building without making any distinction anymore between former soldiers, former lawyers, entertainers. I think our basis for standardizing the requirements for public service should be where our moral compass is, not in our brain, which is very susceptible to what we hear, what we see, what we feel, but in our hearts where our moral compass is. And I think, again, true to form, we Filipinos are very, very well equipped for that.
And a lighter question. I'm quite curious about what kind of music you listen to. It's a glimpse to your personality.
I listen to music performed by my children.
Oh, they're
Are they
Happily. And I think this is a blessing to me. My eldest son, of course, married, having first baby in July after 6 years of marriage. That's neither one are musicians. My second son is married to Barbie.
I saw that.
Barbie and Malvis, and I'm so proud of them because my son is an artist. He has held some one-man exhibits. Barbie, of course, continues to perform and to write and to compose and to arrange. They have two children, my first two grandchildren, one 5-year-old granddaughter, and one 2-year-old grandson. Both are delivered to my wife and I at 6:30 in the morning. And my therapy every morning is to go after two grandchildren moving in opposite directions. It's more challenging than all my experiences put together as a soldier, rebel, and legislator. You have to think on your feet because you have to determine who will fall first. Okay, I have another son who's a pretty good bass player, married to a singer. But I don't know if of course their music is pop. Every time my wife and I need live music, they get together with their friends and we have about 6 hours of live music. So what my taste is, whatever my children and daughters-in-law and my adopted children play is good music for us.
Okay, there's one question here from online. What is the legislative agenda for the youth that we can hold him up to? Since you're very youth-oriented.
I do not single out the youth as a sector in the same manner that I deal with gender-related issues. I always go generic and go for the strategic more than the quick fix that is reflected in our election cycle every 3 years, which is reflected in the commentary of many of our observers. We should be very, very strategic. So I want to start where it should be starting with our children. No? So that will cover not only the youth but their parents as well. Now, to make a comparison, I believe that the president has a clear sense of daang matuwid. But I think a straight road or a straight path will not suffice. What we need, if you bring it to context in the coming May 2013 elections, is an independent Senate. Whatever the configuration is, so that we can give life to the principle of checks and balances. Okay, I am still independent, but I am part now of the UNA coalition. So, going back to Daang Matuwid, I think Daang Matuwid should have electricity, steady source of power, reasonable prices. We should have, and I quote here 2 cabinet secretaries, a few months ago, an economic growth of 6.6% was reflected in the headlines. This will continue to be headlines and front pages unless the majority of our people feel the trickle-down effect. And what this means is more jobs, more food on the table, more infrastructure, roads that will connect the airports where the tourists will arrive to the beauty of our country. More schools, more hospitals, more classrooms, more policemen, more high-tech traffic lights, land use, freedom of information, gun control. So it's not for the youth only. I'm trying to address, because since at my age I have decided that I have more yesterdays than tomorrows, I'm pressed for time.
So what would be the top?
Land use and freedom of information.
Those are the top if you
Yes.
you are elected.
Gun control law, shepherd the agrarian reform program, see it to its completion so that we can move into industrialization, enforce the fire code, get more people involved in informal education outside the 4 walls of the classrooms, because there seems to be a credibility gap between what we teach in the classrooms and what they see by way of example among their parents, their leaders, public officials. So this gap has to be breached. More functional education. We really have to be competitive. I remember reading somewhere that when a journalist was covering South Korea, the building he was occupying to look at the possible conflict overlooked a school where the gates opened at 6:30 in the morning. At 5:30, he could see flashlights. Students reading outside the school gates, reading their lessons at 5:30, 1 hour before the gates open. That's the competition for the children we want to develop.
There's another question here from Charo Logarta. I think you know her. She's asking if you have any opinion on the Ombudsman's insistence to file criminal charges against the Navy men involved in the Pestanya War.
Well, it has to be backed up by, at a certain point kasi, this can be reported as news. But all we need in terms of news would be updates. But when you talk of proceedings in the courts, it should be governed by due process and the rule of evidence, which has to be discussed within the premises of the courtroom. The public, including myself as a legislator, are not equipped to look at the details of this, the rules of evidence, court proceedings. No? And I think these are the institutions that we want to strengthen para we can reduce on premature trial by publicity, where verdicts are made in the hearts and minds of our people. We have to start trusting our institutions again. That's why I take issue also with due process and the rule of law, so that social justice, as one of the reasons why we have the longest running insurgency in Southeast Asia, if not in the world. We have a series of military rebellions. Why? Because of social injustice. Why was the Reformed Armed Forces movement born? Because when soldiers bark or beat whoever government pointed at as enemies of the state. We did our job. But when we complained a little about our living quarters, our equipment, the welfare of our families, our salaries, the military then was thrown a few bones for a job description that required you to put your life on the line. Now, we said before, that's why 86 happened. And, of course, there will be a lot of opinions about the revisionist theories we are propounding. Well, that's why it happened, because a trusted military, a respectable military or police organization, an efficient military, is only a consequence and a mirror of the society and government it serves. It cannot rise higher than the fountain from which it drinks. You have a corrupt military or corrupt police force, it's because maybe the theory is society is corrupt or government is corrupt.
Is there anything in your legislation now that would address the soldiers in terms of benefits and pay?
Yes.
Is that a priority? Because I cannot remember if you said it in the enumeration.
It has been part of my unannounced legislative agenda, because people will keep on reminding me that once upon a time I was a soldier. And of course, as they have tried to remind me that once upon a time I was also a rebel.
So priority pa rin
Yes.
din.
Always
Okay.
a priority. And by the way, the soldiers and the policemen know this, because I am chairman of the Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs. It is my job, my duty, my moral obligations to attend to their welfare.
You have more questions?
I'm looking for some.
There's one here from Sagada-san, Gingo Pogo. K-12 is about the curriculum of schools, which are for reading, writing, arithmetic, not noodles. How do you...
Well, let's test that on the ground. Try teaching reading, arithmetic, and writing to malnourished children. Let's see who responds first.
Okay, another one. How do we uplift welfare of soldiers and their families?
Livelihood, private-public partnership. But going back to the first question,
Yeah, you'll add some more.
even an army runs on its stomach. Try sending soldiers to battle without giving them at least breakfast, lunch, dinner, or any of the above. Let's go back to the educational program. Yeah, it's about functional education, reading, writing, arithmetic. But it's complicated by the fact that the students are malnourished, dying of hunger, and the teachers are the same. Walking 10 kilometers to teach by candlelight in classrooms that have been devastated by typhoons. Test that on the ground. I'm emphatic about this because it's easy to say this when you're inside an air-conditioned office. I've been there.
You have other question, June?
Let's take it.
Kayo, the rest.
I have a question. Everybody knows, or a lot of people are aware that you're an avid motorcyclist. And yet, there's a news item a few days ago in which you were seen or perceived to have been
Not
riding
wearing a
without a
helmet.
helmet. So,
That's-
well, in relation to that, what is your agenda on road safety, and particularly about the proliferation of motorcycles in most of our streets?
Well, Brad, for that news item with the appropriate picture, I admit, by perception, I may not have set a good example because I am co-author of the helmet law. But having said that, I don't know. I mean, for motorcyclists, if you've tried, by the way, my helmet was in front of me in my handlebar,
Yeah, I saw that.
ready to be worn anytime. When you're moving at parade pace, 10 kilometers per hour, and stopping every 10 meters, if I wore my helmet and took it off every 10 meters, up to now, I would still be in one street, in one rally a few days ago, covering that distance. This is something that we will have to address in the implementing rules and regulations. of the helmet law.
It's okay.
No, it's not okay.
Okay.
Every time.
Walking.
That is a gap in the law. That special circumstance and
okay.
situation where candidates like me who want to touch and shake hands and embrace and kiss my constituents, the people I want to bring the issues to, this has to be dealt with in the implementing rules and regulations. But if I need to go to jail for it because of this bad example,
What's the penalty?
I have
pala?
gone to jail for more interesting reasons. So,
What's the penalty for jail? Is not wearing
For
a
the-
helmet.
for this particular circumstance, I don't know. It's not covered in the IRA. But I'll have to look into it. But having said that, Brad, I will continue to campaign in that manner until we are able to address the appropriate provision in the helmet law with the corresponding penalties. And I intend to do that, whatever the outcome is after May. But no excuses.
Have you dealt with that finger? They're all talking about it.
Yeah, there's a ongoing. I took a picture of you kasi.
With
it's
your-
interesting.
with your hand.
They're making speculation. So, can you say something now about the missing
Well,
finger?
I lost my finger when I tried to evade capture when I was
Ayun.
underground. I went over a wall
What year was that?
where there was
Your PMA ring was in it daw?
no, my wedding ring.
Okay.
Oh.
Kasi,
I can-
okay, what's rated?
I can probably withstand the interrogation of the military authorities, but not the interrogation of my wife if I lost my wedding ring under those circumstances. So I went over the wall, my wedding ring got caught in barbed wire and broken bottles. While the authorities were on hot pursuit, I had to look for my finger and my ring, both of which I found. And the attending physician, whose name I will not mention because might put him in jeopardy, decided that they could not reattach my finger because they could not apply anesthesia. So I'm just filling in the blanks. A few days later, or a few hours later, when the severed finger or my hand became gangrenous, they decided to cut portions of it. I mean, I'm just responding to the question. no?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was done without anesthesia.
Yeah.
So this was the price that we all must pay for what we believe in. No regrets, no excuses. Just like the helmet logo.
I'll just show you something because Charo Lagarta tweeted and said that she's an army wife. And she specifically was the one who asked the question on the
Yes.
benefits. She just wants, here's a picture of her husband's battalion. And her question is, what can you do to improve this kind of living condition?
When you talk of modernizing the armed forces or the police, the first thing we have to modernize for Charo and the other families and wives of our soldiers and men in uniform is to modernize our way of thinking. It has to be driven by a clear national security policy. And that will be converted into marching orders for how our soldiers will be quartered, headquartered, how they will move, communicate, and if necessary, shoot. That's my starting point. Of course, their salaries must be not only competitive, but realistic. Factoring in cost of living, wherever they are. And that includes housing, livelihood for their families, the basics. They are not peculiar as Filipinos just because they are soldiers or policemen. In fact, the demand for these benefits for their families is, I think, should be higher because of their job description. And I address this also to the widows and orphans, which has been the subject of a fishing expedition from the Commission on Audit. They revived what should be on record 2011, a project that was inspected, ongoing, and not all the funds have been released. But so again, this is political season, but let's not overdo it. No? Let's not go on fishing expeditions against certain candidates just because you don't agree with their advocacies. I'm just putting this on record in the same light as the question of Charo. No? There should be transparency as we...
But the issue of benefits to the soldiers has been a running issue for a long time.
Yes.
And yet there are how many of you from the military there? There's Senator Trillanes and yourself.
Yes, Jane.
So what, what's taking so long as far as...
Our lack of national priorities. But because if you're looking at the poorest of the poor, I think we should go for the farmers first, who should be the intended beneficiaries of the land reform program. I'm not saying forget about the soldiers. This is actually the challenge, Jane, to government, developing a system of priorities, because funding or the budget is just like rice. No, we haven't settled down on whether it's a supply problem or a distribution problem. Even the most powerful country in the world, the United States, has budgetary problems. They could not even pass the health measure despite the push given by a very popular president. So I'm not saying, I'm not using this as an excuse. I'm just saying that we indeed should develop a very clear sense of priorities so that we can address the farmers and the soldiers and their families. And I agree with you. This has been ongoing because, to my mind, after being in and out of the system for the last generation, only the dates and personalities have changed.
No, because even Senator Biazon is there. I mean, with three of you, I think, shouldn't there be enough push at least to elevate the priority
we have
of
and
this
incrementally,
program?
there's been a calibrated increase in salaries and benefits. Of course, this has to be a product of more research, no? Because I understand the perception that is generated that we have neglected the families, and with many of us former soldiers in the legislature, I think, well, one of us became President Ramos, so we can make the same commentary. No? But what I'm saying, Jane, is this has not been neglected. It's just that again, lack of continuity and sustainability.
One last question before we wrap up.
Yeah, Senator, if there is one candidate, if there is one co-candidate for Senate seat, who do you want to engage in a debate, like a strenuous debate with one candidate or any other candidates? Who would it be?
All of them, because I will stand on my record.
1
And,
to 10.
No, all 33 of them. Because
Not even a single one.
No, modesty aside, all the candidates, I think, are qualified. I'm not all 32. I'm excluding myself
Okay.
because I don't want to be presumptuous. No? I'm just saying that we have to go beyond making promises where the only way to validate if you will keep these promises is to elect you after the fact. So we will only find out if you will keep your promise if we put you in the Senate. That should make us a little distinct in the sense that I'm not making any new promises. I'm just saying I just continue where I left off. So if you're talking about record, performance, acting beyond the rhetoric and the promises and the speeches, I will stand by my record. So I cannot single out any candidate because maybe others would be driven by different standards. I was elected as a senator. I tried to make good, responsive laws that would address primarily our, as I said earlier, our most strategic, precious, and renewable resource, our children.
Okay, Dean is gonna ask.
If you were to rate the current Senate or 33 as a whole in terms of performance on a scale of 10 to 1, 10 being the highest, what will your rate be?
The present Senate?
The present Senate.
The present Senate?
Overall performance from 10 to 1.
despite the perceptions of personality conflicts, I give it a rating of 8. We had good output. Of course, what was highlighted in the news was the personality conflicts. But after 3 hours of caucus, every time this should be brought before public attention, we buckled down to work and we produced a lot of good laws.
So everyone is doing his
Yes,
own
ma'am.
homework?
Yes, ma'am. Opo. It's not, of course, the perception would be it's self-serving, part of the 15th Congress, but each and every one of them tried their best, participated, despite the perceptions that were drowned out by, as I said, these more newsworthy personality conflicts. So I give it a rating of 8.
Yeah. There are more questions coming in, but maybe you can address this in Twitter because I think we have no more time. Our last message for you is we have here a pledge of commitment. If you could go over it, but you don't necessarily have to sign it today. But it is one of the things that netizens look forward to if you are willing to sign it. It's about it's almost like lobbying because we're talking of the Magna Carta for complete internet freedom, transparency with yourself, and the repeal of the cybercrime law and the replacement with that Magna Carta. So it's around 10. We gave you a copy of the Magna Carta, so if you have time to read it. So we gave every candidate that, the ones that we interviewed.
So I don't really have to
Sign now.
Yes, sir.
Not yet. We'll ask it from your staff later
Yes.
on. And with that, thank you for your time. It's already 2 hours.
Thank you for the privilege and the honor of this.
Yes, also our because it's very difficult to set interviews with the candidates. They're so busy. So we really need to sit down with them because we just don't look for one-word slogans, or we want the context to that. And the limited time in the TV is not enough for us to really
By the way,
scrutinize.
I forgot to add instinctively, aside from the children, I guess because I am the son of a soldier and the grandson of a fisherman, I have a terrible bias for the poor. No, it may appear motherhood, but I've seen kasi them firsthand. So children and the 50% who are poor, I just don't know how to operationalize, how to address, focus on where are they, how do you uplift them, what's the demographics of the entire situation. But I guess government is faced with the same challenge on a day-to-day basis. So I just have this bias, not to precipitate a class war or an armed revolution. I'm just saying this because part of the rhetoric that you hear floating around is para sa mahirap. But I think we've done some hard work to.
People are also looking para naman sa middle class.
Yeah.
Para na lang para sa mahirap na yung mga middle class.
Yes, that's true. But again, the second principle that I learned is, aside from right to life, yung balancing of interest. No? I guess that has to be incorporated also. But if, I guess most of you have, or all of you have seen the situation.
We can have him tweet.
Yeah.
Maybe he
Where
can
is
tweet
this-
like a thank you or like for the netizens. We'll just have a picture of you giving them a message. This is
Yeah, of course. Either it's before or after.
I'll do this again later, Sally Jo, para we can edit it.
Siyempre, hindi naman ako. Michelle, di ba? Long time no see.
With that, we will stop the broadcast now, so that we can talk already.